Civilians under fire. Russia steps up attacks on civilian targets as Ukraine's leader appeals to the US and Europe for a no-fly zone.
This is Yin Khvat for TaiwanPlus. I'm outside the central railway station here in Warsaw, the capital of Poland, which has accepted the vast majority of the nearly 3 million people that have now fled the conflict in neighboring Ukraine.
Getting closer. Taiwan holds military exercises on an island just 16 kilometers away from China. And a powerful earthquake hits northeastern Japan. We have the latest. A warm welcome to TaiwanPlus News. I'm Yin Khvat. It is day 22 of Russia's invasion of Ukraine. Civilian targets are increasingly coming under fire as Moscow steps up its military offense. The attacks have prompted US President Joe Biden to brand Russia's president a war criminal. And as Russia's forces inch towards the capital Kyiv, Ukraine's leader Vladimir Zelensky called for a no-fly zone in a virtual address to US lawmakers. John Van Trieste has this report.
Children. That was the word written in Russian on the ground outside a theater in the Ukrainian city of Mariupol, a plea for invading Russian troops to spare the hundreds of civilians sheltering inside from their bombardment. But it was ignored, and Russian airstrikes turned the building to rubble. More civilians came under fire in the northern city of Chernihiv. At least 10 people lining up for bread were killed. Russia has denied the attack. In an impassioned speech to the U.S. Congress, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky compared the war in Ukraine to some of the darkest moments in U.S. history.
Згадайте Перл-Харбор. Страшний, трагічний ранок 7 грудня 41-го року, коли ваше небо було чорним від атакуючих вас літаків. Згадайте це. Згадайте 11 вересня. Страшний день 2001 року, коли зло намагалося перетворити ваші незалежні території, ваші міста у поле битви, коли були атаковані люди, звичайні, невинні люди, атаковані з повітря, так, як ніхто не чекав, так, як ви не могли це зупинити. Наша держава переживає це щоденно.
Zelensky called once again for a no-fly zone over Ukraine, or at least more defensive equipment. He also appealed directly to U.S. President Joe Biden to be a, quote, leader of peace. Biden has labeled Russian President Vladimir Putin a war criminal. In response, Moscow has condemned what it calls, quote, unforgivable rhetoric. Russia says it is making overtures for a compromise with Ukraine, calling on Kyiv to follow the Austrian and Swedish model of neutrality.
Любые возможные варианты, любые общеприемлемые гарантии безопасности для Украины и для всех стран, включая Россию, за исключением расширения НАТО.
But Ukraine says it's too late for the kind of disarmament Moscow is calling for, as a war waged by Russia is already underway. Chris Ma and John Van Trieste for TaiwanPlus.
TaiwanPlus reporter Yin Khvat is in Warsaw, the capital of Poland, where thousands of Ukrainian refugees are arriving each day.
The people behind me here are making use of a huge range of services put up here by the people in Poland. There's hot drinks, hot food. There's stalls inside the station offering free SIM cards for phones, places to charge your phones. There's counters that are organizing accommodation here in Warsaw, as well as in other places around Poland. They're encouraging people to go to smaller towns and other cities, which are more likely to have spaces for people to stay. The population of Warsaw has increased by up to 20% due to the number of refugees fleeing from Ukraine. But at the same time, the people that I'm seeing arriving on the trains here, they're carrying everything that they possibly could. There's a lot of big bags. There's a lot of kids wrapped up, struggling with big luggage around me. And I even saw a family that was carrying what looked like a hamster cage with them.
Ukraine's president has repeatedly urged the United States and NATO to impose a no-fly zone to stop Russian planes from carrying out airstrikes. Our reporter Jaime Ocon spoke to Antonina Usztakiewicz, a professor at Jagiellonian University in Krakow, Poland. He asked about Washington's response to Ukraine's calls for more support.
The United States is doing a lot, but it's not doing enough. This is at least how President Vladimir Zelensky is putting it. He wants more. He is very grateful for the support of the United States and NATO alliance and European Union support, both when it comes to humanitarian aid as well as when it comes to military support. Nevertheless, he asks for several important things. The first one is the no-fly zone over Ukraine. However, it is something very, very difficult to achieve because of several reasons. The most important reason is that if the no-fly zone was to be introduced over Ukraine, someone would have to execute it. Someone would have to make sure that Russian fighter planes will really not enter Ukraine. Of course, NATO would have to be responsible for keeping Ukraine safe, keeping Ukrainian skies safe. However, in that situation, if any Russian fighter jet entered Ukraine, then NATO would have to answer. NATO would have to probably shoot it down. And that would probably lead to the outbreak of a war, a direct war between Russia and NATO.
So given all the things that the United States has been asked to do from President Zelensky, what do you think is the next step that the United States and NATO should take in ensuring that Ukraine, will be assisted in protecting its security?
We definitely know what the United States cannot do. So they cannot get involved directly in this crisis because any that kind of movement would lead to the direct war between Russia and NATO, which is in fact already going on, because the war between Russia and Ukraine is not just the war between those two countries, but it is indirectly a war between Russia and contemporary Russian regime and autocracy against democratic world, against NATO and democratic alliance. And nevertheless, if NATO takes direct steps, that would lead to an open conflict. That is why it's really hard to expect introducing the no-fly zone over Ukraine. However, at least here in Poland, some of the former generals from the Polish army recently suggested that perhaps a no-fly zone could be introduced over Western Ukraine, not over the whole country, but over Western Ukraine, where the situation seems a little bit more stable and where those attacks are, happen less often. Nevertheless, it's still a very risky operation.
Here in Taiwan, as tensions with neighbouring China remain high, military drills have taken place on the country's northernmost island, Dongyin. The regularly scheduled exercise boosted Taiwan defence capabilities and simulated the prevention of enemy forces from taking the island. Bing Wang reports.
Taiwan's military fires shells at a red cross on the water. The target represents advancing enemy forces. Some 1,000 troops were deployed to Mazu's Dongyin Island, Taiwan's northernmost territory. Dongyin lies just 16 kilometers off the coast of China, making it a strategic military location for Taiwan. The island is installed with Xiongfeng and Skyball defense systems, capable of destroying air, naval, and land enemy targets.
台湾的反登陆能力其实非常强，除了各式的反舰飞弹之外，标枪飞弹，还有台湾还有托式飞弹、地狱火飞弹，他们都可以用于反舟坡的登陆。中共应该是不会轻举妄动。
Taiwan regularly holds drills to prepare for a potential Chinese invasion. China claims Taiwan as part of its own territory and has not ruled out taking the country by force, even though China's ruling party has never governed Taiwan. A recent document leaked from the Russian Federal Security Service by a human rights group claimed China had considered taking over Taiwan by force this fall, but Russia's invasion of Ukraine had pushed the timeline back. Taiwan's Foreign Minister Joseph Wu dismisses the document but says the country must boost its military defense capabilities.
有关于这个文件，我不确定这个是不是事实。不管中国是不是要攻击我们，或者是什么时候要攻击我们，我们随时随地都要做好自我防卫的准备。
Taiwan has also implemented new military reservist training to enhance the country's combat readiness. Taiwan is determined to keep its sovereignty, and these efforts hope to deter China from exerting any military pressure on the country. Kama Xu and Bing Wang for TaiwanPlus.
At least 4 people have been killed and more than 100 injured in a powerful earthquake that struck off Japan's northeastern coast on Wednesday night. The magnitude 7.4 quake hit off Fukushima prefecture, reviving memories of the 2011 earthquake that triggered a nuclear disaster. Louise Watt reports.
A home in Japan's Fukushima prefecture as a 7.4 magnitude earthquake strikes. A resulting power failure plunged more than 2 million homes into darkness, including 700,000 in Tokyo, which also shook from the quake. Japan's chief cabinet secretary said there were fatalities and more than 100 people had been injured.
亡くなられた方々のご冥福をお祈りをするとともに、被災されたすべての方々に心よりお見舞いを申し上げます。
The quake struck around 11:30 on Wednesday night off the coast of Fukushima, the region that was devastated by a magnitude 9 earthquake and tsunami in 2011. That disaster destroyed the Fukushima nuclear plant, which is now being decommissioned. The plant's operator said no abnormalities had been found at the site after the latest earthquake. But elsewhere in Fukushima, some houses were damaged and a bullet train partially derailed. A tsunami warning for waves up to 1 meter for parts of the northeast coast was withdrawn. Waves of up to 30 centimeters were recorded. Authorities are warning people to be on guard for more strong quakes in the next 2 to 3 days. Klein Wong and Louise Watt for TaiwanPlus.
Coming up, we look at how the pandemic is piling on the pressure for forensic pathologists. Details after the break.
What makes this island nation exceptionally punch way above its might? It's the fascinating human stories we heard, plus the greatest movies we saw. The enduring and painstaking past we learned, plus the beautiful people we met. The delightful cuisines we tasted, plus the coexistence of many cultures we embraced. The powerful, energizing technology we invented, plus the ancient masterpieces we preserved. The human rights we advanced, plus the motherland we called home. TaiwanPlus. We will continue to show you unheard, compelling stories that touch our hearts. Come with us as we embark on yet another unraveling journey to the world.
Welcome to the Gym Mando. 你知道怎么去台北车站吗？有这么多。台北哪里好玩 ？What's fun to visit in Taipei？ 我怎么知道？我都没有去逛。你家有几个人？我家有33个人。
好像天气不冷也不热。
Do I win a trophy for learning how to use these phrases?
Yes, you do. That would be me.
Ew.
Thank you for watching TaiwanPlus. For more great news from Taiwan and around the world, download the app TaiwanPlus.
Welcome back. You're watching TaiwanPlus News. A reminder of our top story. Russia is stepping up attacks on civilian targets in Ukraine, killing an unknown number of people. The attacks have prompted US President Joe Biden to brand Russia's leader a war criminal. As events on the ground unfold, there are questions about whether Russia will also launch an attack on Ukraine in cyberspace. For more, I spoke to Glenn Gerstle at CSIS, the Center for Strategic International Studies, who was also General Counsel of the United States National Security Agency.
It's certainly possible that Vladimir Putin, if he felt cornered or if he felt that he had nothing more to lose, given that strong sanctions have already been imposed, that he might decide to lash out with a cyber offensive attack aimed either further at Ukraine or more likely at the West in Europe or the United States in retaliation for the imposition of sanctions. My own personal guess is that it's unlikely that he would do anything that would be seriously destructive because the upside for him, the benefit, isn't all that much. It would certainly enrage the United States and Western Europe and make them even more irritated and more willing to retaliate, possibly even militarily if there was a very severe cyber attack. Having said that, it's entirely possible that he could give the green light to the ransomware gangs operating in Russia and say, okay, guys, go at it. And it's also possible he could tell his cyber offensive units within the military and their spy agencies to go after defense contractors or the financial sector to try to cause some disruption.
There are reports of a 300,000 strong IT army made up of volunteers working for Ukraine. How effective do you think they have been in fighting Russia?
This is a new phenomena, sort of, so to speak, crowdsourcing the cyber offense here. How successful they'll be and causing any real damage is pretty unclear. I suspect probably not. But it does divert Russia's cyber authorities from perhaps engaging in more malicious activity and will certainly cause them to have to now focus on some defense. So it'll have some effect, whether it's the sign of the things to come in the future where we have each side has various cyber armies that it enlists is yet to be seen.
And moving to Taiwan now, analysts are saying that any move on Taiwan is more likely to take place in cyberspace rather than boots on the ground. What's your take on that?
Hard to say what would happen if China decides it wants to forcibly take Taiwan. I assume that cyber would be part of an integrated effort to destabilize and deorient defenses in Taiwan first. So you could see an effort to go after telecommunications systems and disrupt them, perhaps electric grids, perhaps financial transactions to sow discord among the populace and confusion and fear and panic. So all those are elements of cyber. They don't really produce long-lasting strategic benefits. They're usually temporary, which is why pure cyber alone isn't going to accomplish anything for China if it decided to do something as malevolent as that. But could it be part of a broader campaign, an integrated campaign that would involve military? Absolutely.
Taiwan is slowly getting to grips with a new problem on its roads. More and more accidents are being caused by people driving under the influence of illegal drugs. Eric Gao reports.
This crash is not the result of drunk driving, but drug driving. Taiwan is seeing a rising number of accidents caused by drivers under the influence of illegal drugs. Tens of thousands of suspected drug driving accidents are reported every year in Taiwan, but very few are ever prosecuted because the rules about investigating such incidents are unclear. This means that many crashes caused by drivers under the influence of drugs are treated as regular accidents. For fatal crashes that do get classified as drug driving, the maximum penalty is 10 years in jail. Drunk drivers, however, can go to prison for life. The discrepancy suggests that more scrutiny is needed to combat this new threat on the country's roads. James Rayner and Eric Gao for TaiwanPlus.
A Taiwanese YouTuber with millions of followers has been charged with violating the Personal Data Protection Act for creating pornographic videos using so-called deepfake technology. The YouTuber, known as Xiao Yu, shared indecent videos with different faces edited into them. Some of the victims included famous Taiwanese singers, internet influencers, and even politicians. Prosecutors say there were as many as 119 victims, and Xiaoyu's illegal profits exceeded 10 million NT dollars, or over 350,000 US dollars.
身为技术、制造、散播不实性影像等罪章，都以独立的处罚。如果是以盈利的方式涉及该犯罪的话，我们还可以加重处罚，最重可以处罚7年以下。
Around 37 million people are under lockdown in China as COVID-19 cases across the country hit a 2-year high. China's National Health Commission reported over 2,400 new cases on Thursday, mainly in northeastern Jilin province. At least 11 cities and countries nationwide have been locked down because of the latest surge, including tech and manufacturing hub Shenzhen. Across the border, Hong Kong continues to count tens of thousands of new cases daily. Experts say the city's Omicron wave has already peaked. No connection has been established between the Hong Kong and the mainland outbreaks, but in the latest measure, public beaches across the territory were shut down after a viral post on Chinese social media blamed beach-going Hong Kongers for the mainland's COVID woes. Vietnam lifted its quarantine requirement for international travellers on Wednesday, ending nearly 2 years of restrictions to combat the COVID-19 pandemic. Visitors entering the country are now only required to show a negative test result prior to arrival. That's despite Vietnam reporting a daily average of nearly 200,000 cases over the past 2 weeks. The health ministry says deaths and hospitalizations remain low. Before the pandemic, tourism accounted for 10% of the local economy. Forensic pathologists perform autopsies to find out the causes of death. The COVID pandemic has brought greater challenges to their job. Our reporter Betty Chen has this story.
These forensic pathologists are putting on another protective layer to do their work. With COVID-19, they're at even greater risk of infection. Aside from personal protective equipment, or PPEs, they use a positive airway pressure device to increase airflow and make sure they are not exposed to the virus.
最害怕的就是说我们在古迹喷溅到空气中。我们有一个就是一个案件，但是我们也是马上就停下来，然后几乎快2个礼拜的时间我们几乎每天都测看看自己会不会得到。
There are only 28 forensic pathologists across Taiwan, which has a total population of 23 million. 10 of these pathologists work directly for the central government, and they have to handle over 100 cases a month. The pandemic has increased their workload by half.
我们曾经也有法医师工作到相当晚，到半夜。这个也是因为疫情的关系，假如是案件累积起来，我们大家就要很努力的共同在团队性的来应付这一类的案件。
Teamwork is vital in forensic science, and together, the small group of pathologists and forensic examiners has been able to cope with the workload. They say they're committed to getting their job done right, despite any challenges.
可以看到他的体内同时检出了这么多种的新型毒品。我们可以看到1、2、3、4、5、6、7、8，有8种。
Pathologists would like to see more people join their ranks, but the pay is low and the job is known to be difficult. Those here admit there is much room for improvement, but their commitment to their work remains unshakable. Klein Wang and Betty Chen for TaiwanPlus.
Taiwan has a plan for a net zero emissions future. The National Development Council is set to release the road map by the end of March. President Tsai Ing-wen has pledged to help Taiwan reach that goal by 2050. She made the commitment last year on Earth Day. Over 120 countries have joined in that pledge in a bid to combat global warming. The authors of Taiwan's roadmap say it will also include new proposals to reduce greenhouse gas emissions, such as investing in renewable energy. The first electric bus produced by Taiwanese manufacturing giant Foxconn entered service in the southern city of Kaohsiung on Wednesday. The company is best known for making consumer electronics like Apple's iPhone, but Foxconn has also made a strong push into electric vehicles in recent years. The new Model T joins a fleet of 195 electric buses in Kaohsiung. The local government says the vehicles will help the city reduce pollution and achieve its net zero goals. It plans to eventually buy more than 1,000 electric buses. Thanks for watching TaiwanPlus News. I'm Yin Khvat. We leave you with some images of St. Patrick's Day celebration in Chicago, the United States. For more stories from Taiwan and around the world, please download the TaiwanPlus app. Stay safe and see you next time.